So they couldn't do it to be topical because Destiny doesn't do anything to be nice. But the week after our Destiny episode, Bungie finally put out the House of Wolves trailer and announced an official date. It doesn't say it in the trailer, but apparently the official date I believe is May 17th.
All right, that's coming up. That's
so that's
soon.
That's about a month away.
Yeah.
And that's kind of exciting. But if you haven't seen it, go out and watch it. It's about a minute long, and just so you have a point of reference of what we're talking about. But what were your initial impressions on the Destiny trailer or the House of Wolves trailer?
Well, we're introduced to the Queen and the Reef and the House of Wolves in the regular, story missions, the campaign, I guess, whatever you want to call it, in Destiny. And it's an interesting situation going on there with the Fallen sort of being subservient to this awoken Queen. And you can't help but think that's a stupid idea.
Yeah.
Like, that's real dumb. But on the other hand, it's like, oh, that's really interesting. She's sort of like tamed the Fallen.
But it's also really vague in the sorry, I'm distracted. It's also really vague in the game itself as to like what their relationship is, whether they're slaves or linemen or whatever.
They don't really go into it
because it's Destiny.
Yeah.
They don't go into anything
because Destiny.
But continue.
So the first thought. I mean, so the trailer starts off and it shows some dead awoken, and then there's a narration by the Queen, and she's sort of talking over it, talking about how they've basically betrayed the awoken. She sort of took them in and gave them mercy, and then they betrayed us. So she opens up the Reef to the Guardians to sort of go on the offensive and take them out.
That's so exciting to me.
It is really exciting.
It's an exciting storyline because I like the Queen. I like the Awoken. The Fallen are my favorite enemy in Destiny. Probably because it reminds me the most of Halo. But the real thing is that it just, to me, the House of Wolves sounds like it's going to be such a much larger expansion than Crota's End. Is it called Crota's End? The Dark Below?
The Dark Below.
Than the Dark Below. Did you play the Borderlands 1 DLC?
Oh, I have no idea.
So when Borderlands came out, this was one of my first experiences with like in-depth DLC. After the game came out, they came out with 2 expansion packs. The Secret Island of Dr. Zed.
I played that one.
Okay. And the arena. It was like firefight mode. Mad Moxie's Underdome. That's what it was called.
Okay.
And both of those were $15, and they were very underwhelming. Like,
yeah.
The Secret Island Dr. Zed just felt tiny, and you just didn't feel like you got your money's worth. Mad Moxie's Underdome was the same thing. Some people really like Horde mode or arenas and stuff like that.
Not us.
It doesn't do much for me. And I'm a little scared for House of Wolves because from what I hear, the placeholder name of the House of Wolves raid is the arena. And that scares me. But Mad Moxie's Underdome came out, and that was really underwhelming. But then the General Knox DLC came out. And that was huge. And it cost the same $15. But it just felt like a whole other game. It was massive, and there was a whole great storyline to it, and the ultimate boss from Borderlands, boy, I wish I could remember his name. Cromarax was in General Knox. So it just sort of felt like General Knox was the real end game for Borderlands. I'm getting the same impression with House of Wolves.
Is this the last DLC? Is there no more planned, or is that not clear?
There's apparently one really big DLC planned for the end of the year. It's codenamed Comet. So what's going on is that I actually read the contract between Activision and Bungie.
What a nerd.
I only read the first 4 of 26 pages. But the first page is really the most interesting one. So unlike Assassin's Creed where they put one out every year, what they're doing with Destiny is that every 2 years you're going to get a major Destiny game. So 2014 you got Destiny 1, 2016 you're going to get Destiny 2. On the off years, you're going to get a Comet DLC, and it's like Comet 1, Comet 2, Comet 3, Comet 4. And it's going to be an extremely large either like offshoot game or DLC around the same time that a Destiny would release, in that like September to November holiday time. So House of Wolves is the last like real DLC for Destiny before whatever Comet's going to be, which is, at least 6 to 8 months down the line.
Okay.
But
is the idea that House of Wolves is really going to last that long? Is that really going to get us to the end of the year?
I'm sort of under the impression that it might, and I'll tell you why. First off, this is just going to be bigger. There's a new hub space in the Reef. So you have like all new vendors and new things to do, which is important. For Crota's End, you just go back to the same old tower and everything. But more specifically, from what I've heard, there's going to be new levels of difficulty on the pre-existing raids. Oh, excuse me. And the reward you can get from those raids will actually raise your light level. So right now, even though Crota's End is out, the max level is 32. When I run Vault of Glass, the max level armor I can still get from that is level 30. Apparently what's going to happen is that they're introducing new raid armor into like Vault of Glass and Crota, and a higher difficulty level. So you can actually raise your light level higher just through running Vault of Glass. And what that does is, in addition to all the content that you're already going to get with House of Wolves, it also gives you an incentive and a real like value to going back to your older content and running that again.
That's both really awesome, but also really obnoxious for the people that have run it and found really cool. Like, I've found tons of really cool armor and melted it because I don't need it or want it because it doesn't do anything for me right now. And it's like, oh man, that's sad.
Well, it's going to be new stuff that people haven't seen. Level 34 Vault of Glass armor. And
yeah, but it's all
fun.
the same armor, just with higher stats.
No, I think it's
brand new.
Yeah, it has
armor?
like new names and everything.
Right.
I think
that's fine then.
So I think there's going to give you more value towards this. I don't know. This is rampant speculation, but I thought this House of Wolves trailer looked really good. It's very encouraging. The Fallen are so much more interesting than the Hive, and the Queen is so much more interesting than Eris Morn.
Yeah.
Everything about Eris Morn annoys me.
She kind of reminds me of a smelly hippie.
Yeah, she's awful. She's just awful. The trailer was kind of violent, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Pretty dark. The thing that I find most interesting about it though is I feel like we're finally going on the attack. I feel like everything is just like we're sort of in a foreign land when we go to these other places, but like now we've been like invited in.
Yeah.
To like push back these attackers in this realm as opposed to like a sort of surgical strike. Like we're not going to even though we took out Crota, we're still not going to be living on the moon.
Right.
Like the Hive own the moon.
Yeah.
And the Fallen do too. I mean, they're all up there. But like I feel like we have the opportunity to actually like push the House of Wolves out of the Reef, and then it's ours.
That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, which is sort of a different mentality than what we've been working on previously.
Yeah. So I'm excited. May 17th, we finally get to play some new Destiny.
Yep.
Not that I ever stopped. Podcast theme music, go.
Yeah.
Podcast theme music, go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Player 2 Press Start. I am killagreg. You can find me at killagreg17.
And I'm Dan. You can find me at the Polygon 1.
You can find both of us at Player 2, PLAYR TWO on the Twitter.
And you can find us at player2pressstart.com.
Today, we are going to do the first of our new general video game topic discussions.
Sort of game theory-esque.
Little game theory. This one's a little more fanboyish than, what makes this good, what makes that bad, why does this work?
Mm-hmm.
But as a whole, it's still a very important topic. We're talking about video game music. So we're going to keep this, pretty free and liberal. We're just going to go through as a little bit of a timeline, talk about music we like, talk about some important stuff, stuff like that. And I think a general discussion point we're going to have both in this and for the next few of our general discussion podcasts is the validity of video games as a medium. I was having the experience today when I was coming up with this list where if I told people that I listen to video game music, which I do at work, I'll throw on the Double Dragon soundtrack sometime and I'll just listen to it. A lot of times you're going to get a comical response.
Mm-hmm. An adverse reaction.
Yeah, that's a much better way to put it. Because people don't give any real credence to video game music. And I can see their point of view for some of the older things. Like you don't, at cursory glance, you don't really give enough attention to Mario and see just how brilliant that original Mario track is. But nowadays, games like Destiny, Halo, God of War, all this stuff, they have entire orchestral scores done for these games, and people still don't give it any respect. So I think we'll talk a little bit on that today, and it's just sort of an overarching theme for most of our discussions is why should this be taken, why should this have validation, and why maybe we don't think it doesn't. So Dan, you sort of crafted the rundown for the show today, so why don't I let you take over a little bit, and
all right,
we'll just start discussing.
So I've sort of broken down the sort of general conversation into two eras. We've got classic gaming music and we've got modern gaming music. So for classic gaming, I didn't go past the N64. I would say that's sort of on the fence there. But I mean, there are theme songs like for Super Mario Brothers and The Legend of Zelda, the Overworld theme. I mean, those are so iconic and incredible and like perfect. They're just perfect.
Yeah.
And it could be because there's so much like nostalgia wrapped up in it. Like they evoke so much emotion because of the experiences associated with them. But they're really beautiful in their simplicity.
Yeah. What I find so interesting about these songs is that a lot of them are between 45 seconds and a minute 30. I think the Super Mario theme is like 50 seconds long, realistically. But you would love to hear the Super Mario theme right now, right?
Yeah.
And I, too, would also love to hear the Super Mario theme.
I never not want to hear that.
We heard that song a billion times when we were a kid. And we're 30 years later, we're still hear that song. We're still not sick of it. And these old games, they just loop the same thing over and over and over and over until you were dead. And you have to keep in mind that, like the Mario theme, you played the first world more than probably any other level of all time.
Yeah.
And it's still a compelling piece of music. And there has to be some extra accolades given to these people who can write a 45-second something that you want to hear for 30 years.
Yeah.
Even while you're playing it, you're not like, oh my God, to hear this goddamn song one more time. It's not that. It's like, oh, I get to start over? Maybe I get to hear that song.
Yeah. Or like, ooh, I wonder if this Zelda game is going to have the theme songs from the previous games, because some of them don't always necessarily have the music.
Yeah.
Most of them do, but not all.
So we're going to run down a few important games here?
We can. We mentioned Mario and Zelda. I was recently watching a short clip from Metroid. Metroid is a game that I never got like heavy into, but I respect it as a game. And I was really kind of blown away by the music in Metroid. Really impressive, and I don't think it's something that, like, I necessarily noticed when I was younger because I didn't really play it that much.
Let me go a little more in depth on Metroid.
Okay.
The Metroid theme is probably my favorite NES theme music.
Okay.
Are we gonna pick a favorite at the end?
Yeah, I think we should pick what we at some point we should pick what we think is the best.
Yep.
And then what is our favorite.
All right. I
Because
still want to talk
those
about
might
this now.
be not the same.
I'm going to give two answers later, so I'm going to talk about Metroid because it's might be my favorite.
Okay.
The whole point of Metroid is it's sort of a horror game.
Yeah, it's dark.
It's very dark. It invokes this lonely feeling. You're one person versus an entire planet that's trying to murder you. You're underground. You're in a maze. Your resources are limited. Even the mechanics of Metroid, by using your most powerful weapon, which is your missiles, as a key to open doors, is a very subtle way to invoke like that sort of. I mean, think back, to Resident Evil. Like, it's all resource management.
Mm-hmm.
Metroid's the exact same thing. And that theme song right from the get-go, it's that very like that quiet, that pinging, that ping, and it's got that low like it's the same thing like Inception used so many years later.
Like the weirdness of it is almost like the prototype for Mass Effect in some ways. I mean, I know they're so completely different, but that like sort of emotional feeling, it's very similar, like sort of bizarre and otherworldly.
So like just from the title screen of Metroid, they're subliminally telling you the feeling you should have for this game, and that music is just the best.
And I mean, look at like how not technologically advanced these music clips. I mean, it's not even a song. It's less than that. It's a clip of something. And I mean, they're not advanced at all in any way whatsoever. I mean, they're pretty much the most, except for like hitting a drum for 50 seconds. Like, it's pretty much like the most basic music you could really have.
Yeah.
And still call it music without just calling it a sound.
I wish I had done a little more research on it. I think they had like 4 tracks to use, which is next to nothing. Like the masterwork that these people did is incredible.
Yeah.
And I believe that sometimes games even needed to borrow one of the music tracks to do like additional stuff. So sometimes you don't even get like that 3rd track or 4th track. It's just been taken by something else.
Mm-hmm.
All right, keep going.
So 2 other games that stand out specifically for me are Destination Earthstar, which is a really great NES game. It's a science fiction, space exploration, battle sort of game. And actually, if you want to see a real quick rundown, you can check out Alex Krasny's website, agreeordie.com, and he does this great series called A to Z, where he's playing all of the Nintendo games from A to Z. He plays them for, I don't know, like 2 to 3 minutes each, and then
I think he sets a 5-minute timer, like an actual 5-minute timer.
Was that what it is?
Timer,
okay,
yep.
Sorry. So he plays through it briefly, and then we'll rate it either a 0 or a 1.
Which is genius.
Yeah, 0 out of 1 or 1 out of 1. And so he is up into the E's now at this point. So he recently covered Destination Earthstar, and it's actually kind of funny watching 2 guys play it that have never played it before, trying to figure it out, because they throw you into this game. But the music it's. Well, I guess we'll have to cut it in here so that it gives some context for the listeners. But I feel like it's really dense for an NES game, and like the same way with Metroid, it's different than Metroid, but the way they sort of do a lot with a little is really impressive. So that's one that really stands out for me. And then my probably my all-time favorite video game music is the.
Wait, shouldn't you be saving this?
Well, I should be, but it's relevant to the classic games. Is the overworld song for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1. Quite possibly one of the most frustrating Nintendo games I've ever played.
Yeah.
But when you're on the street level, there's different music that plays, and I love it. So we'll have to cut that in here. So those are probably the ones that stand out to me the most. I think if I spent more time to sort of review the classic gaming music, I'm sure there's others that would grab my attention. Maybe Kid Icarus, Mega Man. I was never a huge Mega Man guy, but I've heard the music is worth listening to.
Yeah. To say the least.
I'm not I have a deep respect and appreciation for classic games, but I am not a classic game player anymore. So a lot of it is like I sort of vaguely remember enjoying most of the game, but without listening to it again, some of them don't stand out. Those are the four I think that really do a lot. Oh, you know what? And I would say Kirby.
Oh, really?
Kirby has a lot of really great music.
It has some memorable tracks that get stuck in my head sometimes.
It's very like lighthearted and airy. It really evokes the feeling of Kirby.
That is not one of those games that you can hear the music to a million times and want to keep listening to it. But the first couple times through, it's catchy and you're bopping along and it fits the tone of the game perfectly. So I definitely understand that pick.
It's amazing the range that they have, given what they have to work with. I mean, I guess I've never really thought about it. I just think, oh, they're more simplistic. But I mean, the sheer range of emotion and substance and density that they can put is really quite impressive.
Yeah, I think when you say that you're not a classic gamer, I also I'm more involved than you are, but I don't play that many classic games anymore. I don't love the feeling I get while playing them. It's oftentimes more frustration than fun.
Yeah.
It's not easy to relax playing a Mega Man.
I think the only way that I can really get through is if I take like the approach that Alex has for A to Z, and it's like I'm just gonna sit here and play this for 5 minutes and move on, as opposed to like I really want to play this and like get through it.
Right.
Like if I'm just like, goofing off, like this game's garbage, move on. Like it's fine.
But the music to these games is a really great way for me to experience them, to have that nostalgic feeling towards these games without having to play them.
Yeah, it's kind of like listening to a Let's Play, because like you don't have to suffer through it, but you get to experience it.
So like if I feel really reminiscent about Ninja Gaiden, Ninja Gaiden's an impossible game, and I'm good at it, but I'm not great. But I love that music. I can go and listen to a track and just sort of feel like I'm playing the game and just get that nostalgic feeling. Like, man, I remember when I was a kid playing this game, how cool it was when it was a ninja hooking onto walls and stuff like that. So I think this video game music just enables us to participate in that retro game without actually having to physically play it, which is something that I appreciate. So I got a few games that I need to talk about.
Okay.
I just mentioned Ninja Gaiden.
I don't think I know the music for this one at all.
The music for the levels is amazing. It's these huge sweeping, like you just feel like this sense of epic. Oh boy, I'm sounding like a real idiot.
No, I think I understand what you're getting at.
Ninja Gaiden has like a real plot to it. You have to get to your dad before like all this stuff happens. And the music really drives you. It's like frantic, and you just
urgent.
You got to go. Yeah, it's like you got to run. And what makes Ninja Gaiden so great as a game is how fluid it is, even for an NES game.
Mm-hmm.
And that all ties into that sense of urgency that you have, and the music really just drives that home. It's like, hurry up, man! You got to go. You got to go. You got to go. So the levels music is great. The boss music though is just awful. And it's the same boss music for each boss. Bro, it's just awful.
Totes Garbo
faux show. Since we're lumping in like PlayStation and N64 as classic games, you'd be remiss to not mention the Final Fantasy VII soundtrack.
Yep.
One Wing Angel is just like the classic orchestral video game song.
Just as an aside, I think it is criminal they have not released like a remastered version of that game.
Did we talk about that Ultimate Troll they did a little while back?
We've talked about this. We've talked about Final Fantasy VII a few times, so I don't know if this has come up or not. I'm
going to mention it real quick just in case we haven't talked about it. So I think it was Gamescom of last year, maybe in November. Gamescom is a giant video game conference in Germany. Like 100,000 people show up. It's open to the public. It's like E3, but if E3 anybody could go to E3. So Sony was doing a press conference. They pull up whoever's in charge of Squaresoft now. He comes out and he starts subtly nodding, making nods towards Final Fantasy VII. He's like, "This is a classic game. Everybody wants it. I just want to announce Final Fantasy VII is coming to the PS4." And everybody just loses their mind. It's like, "Oh my God, what, are you serious? I can't believe it." And he's like, "I've brought a trailer." And he turns around and this trailer starts and you're like, "Oh my God, this is it. This is it. Finally remastered." And then they start showing these Garbo clips from the recently remastered PC version of Final Fantasy VII, which it's the exact same game. And they're not doing anything special to it. They're not doing like an HD remake or anything. They're just giving you the PC port that you can download on the PS4. But he had to have known what he was doing. It was like the way he was presenting it. He's like, "This is it. You've all been waiting for it. I get excited, guys."
Like he's almost giddy with like how terrible he's gonna be.
It's like the troll face. He was like turning into the troll face. It was just so wonderful. I don't know. They have ruined the entire Final Fantasy brand. Too long in between games. The games that do come out are garbage. Final Fantasy 14 online. Nobody wants to play that. Like
Japanese games, man.
It's unbelievable. I've heard good things about this Final Fantasy 15 demo that's been out.
You know what? You know what I want? I want Final Fantasy 7, 2, Final Fantasy 7, 3, Final Fantasy 7,
right.
4. I don't want Final Fantasy 7, 15.
Yeah, it is just it's just awful.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Final Fantasy score for Final Fantasy 7 is just absolutely incredible. And actually Final Fantasy 9 has a really wonderful score as well. Nobody ever talks about Final Fantasy 9 even though it is the better Final Fantasy. Real passive aggressive there. Street Fighter 2.
I would have to hear it again.
Oh, dude. The second you hear it, you're going to be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I just don't have this song in my head the time."
I'm sure you're right. There's a lot of them like that where it's like I hear it and I'm just like, "Oh man, this is brilliant."
Yeah, the Guile theme, the Ken theme. Oh,
I didn't play a lot of Street Fighter 2
that surprises me.
I was never big into fighting games. And I gravitated more towards Mortal Kombat, I think, more than anything else.
There was a time in my life when me and my friend Chris Penamacore, he was like my best friend in 5th grade. We would alternate sleeping over at each other's house like every other Friday. He had a Genesis, I had a Super Nintendo. Every Friday that was at my house, we would go and rent Street Fighter, and then we would just stay up all night playing it.
Remember renting games?
Yeah, how peculiar.
from the grocery store. That's what I used to do.
You still can rent games from Redbox.
Yeah, but I just remember there was like that whole corner of the grocery store that was like devoted to rentals, and like the plastic case that a Nintendo or Super Nintendo game would come in. Oh man, good times.
It's so funny that something can completely ruin an industry. Like Netflix rolled along and renting things was done.
Yep.
Forever. I feel Blockbuster's real mad about that still. I'll put in some clips. I'm gonna as you've been hearing throughout, I'm gonna put clips for each game we mention. Street Fighter 2 might get 2. F-Zero. I'm not terribly familiar with the game, and this song specifically is almost, I'm more familiar with it from, bands playing it now, like mini bosses and stuff. But the song Big Blue, oh my God, that song is just insane. It is like the most metal track that you could ever shove into a cartridge.
I remember, I'd have to hear it, but I remember the game having kind of like intense music because it's like the quickest game in the world. Like it feels like you're racing at like 9 million miles per hour.
Absolutely.
And the music
Big Blue
is paired with that.
Yeah, it's like a Megadeth song in F-Zero. It's just insane. And the last song that needs to be mentioned, and this is the song that most people just consider the best song, is the Moon level from DuckTales. I
never played DuckTales.
The DuckTales, the game's pretty good. but that song is insanely good. It's
Okay.
insanely good
Is that for the Nintendo or Super Nintendo?
for the Nintendo.
Okay.
It's great. And did we actually mention the Mega Man series? Mega Man 2.
Briefly.
Mega Man 2 has just... It is the most consistently amazing soundtrack.
Like throughout the game?
Yeah. Each boss has a great song. Each boss level has a great song. Wily's stage has a great song. And even like the music at the beginning is just... It gets you so hype.
There's two games now, I played more of Contra, but I don't think we ever had Contra. I don't know where we played it, but does Contra have good music? I don't remember.
I don't remember. And I remember where we played Contra. It was at the after party of our prom.
Well, I mean, I played it at various times when I was a kid. But
I thought you meant specifically when you and I played.
No, but that's weird that you remember that then. We did not go together, just so that's clear.
Wink.
What about, and the other one I was going to ask about is Castlevania.
Oh yeah, no, Vampire Killer. That song is also amazing. That's another song that just like gets you so in the mood for the Castlevania game.
So here's, I'm sorry, did you have more on Castlevania?
Just a little
Sorry.
bit. Castlevania is just, it's not actually a game that I like, but it is a game that I respect for all the choices it makes. The pacing of that game is phenomenal and precise. Like, it feels like they make mistakes, but they actually did everything for a reason. And it just nails it. It nails the feel, like the way you move, the music that goes with it, the color palette that they chose. Castlevania is just like a very well constructed game.
So this, I will mention the final game I have that I would lump in with this classic stuff, is for N64, the Rogue Squadron, Star Wars Rogue Squadron, the first one. And the reason I'm sort of bringing it up is because it's that game, the music, the aesthetics, the menus, everything. It's sort of like all-encompassingly Star Wars. Everything about it just oozes Star Wars. And off the top of my head, I don't know how much of the music, if any, is not actually original to the movies and what was like perhaps created just for the game, or like, the stuff that plays on menu screens and other stuff. I don't know if that's original or just taken from some point from the original soundtracks. I don't know. But a question I have for you is, so there's like these definite emotions and feelings that these games are trying to get us to feel. Whether it's Kirby and you're just a big dumb goofball who likes to eat marshmallows and enemies and whatever, or something like really quick like F-Zero, or dark like Castlevania. Most music doesn't have the luxury of visuals to accompany it. It only can rely on the music itself. Do you feel that with video games, where the two, kind of the visual and the audio, are so closely married with each other, do you feel like it's almost cheating to get that emotion with the video game music?
Interesting.
Because there's all these aesthetics. Like, if you put the Kirby music in Castlevania, it would feel really out of place. But like, something kind of dark, and it kind of feels like organ music, and like, there's sort of these Eastern European sort of Dark Ages kind of feel,
Yeah.
It's sort of like they all sort of come together. Like the same thing with Metroid. Like, it feels kind of otherworldly. With Destination Earthstar, it's like it feels sort of like you're out in space, but like it's momentous. There's all these things that sort of evoke feelings, but you have all these interesting aesthetics to go with it to reinforce it.
Point. I feel like,
is it cheating,
yes,
or is it a good use of your medium?
It's a little bit cheating, but I also think you're discounting all the other music that is cheating in more subtle ways. The name of a song will imply the feeling you're supposed to get. The band that it's coming from. Like Marilyn Manson, not a great example, but if you know a song is by Marilyn Manson, you have a visual in your head of the type of person that is creating this song. To bring it back to this, so there's a level in Destiny where Rasputin the Warmind, it's a computer AI, he's under siege, and he is unable to communicate to you in a proper way. So he's playing a classical music song. The name of that song is Pathétique. It's written by Mozart, and it's supposed to be like the song of like a suicide note in song form. And the whole thing is very sad and solemn, but just from the name of it, like automatically what kind of song you're getting from that. And classical music is has the least input to, or let's say the least visuals to emotional state.
There's not as much like metadata to go with it.
Right.
I would say for a casual modern listener, it's like the average person doesn't know a great deal about the composer or the title of a song. Like you'll hear like a symphony by Beethoven. You don't really, the average listener, I would say, doesn't know anything about it.
Right.
But you can get those emotions from the music.
So I think just from the name, and there's still a backstory to it, and I think any listener would know the purpose of that symphony and stuff like that. So yeah, the visuals and the gameplay being so closely tied to a video game song certainly will taint your perspective. I don't think it's cheating much more than any other musical entity.
Fair enough.
So let's move a little bit more towards like modern gaming.
Okay.
Now, a lot of modern games, they don't have that sort of like theme song or level themes that those classic games had. A lot of them are more like interactive. They cue when you reach certain parts. Destiny has music that is, like different music will start when you're doing different things, stuff like that. And there's a lot more like ambiance to it. But as a whole, video game music has progressed to such a huge degree that, it's just this whole thing now. Like, you can buy game soundtracks. You can go out and buy the soundtrack to Red Dead Redemption.
Like that wasn't a thing when we were kids. You couldn't go buy the soundtrack for Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
If you could, that was not something I was ever aware of, and it's unfortunate because that's something like I would totally 100% buy a cassette tape from Nintendo of the Mario music or Zelda or something, or like Nintendo classics.
They did everything. I cannot believe that they didn't actually do that.
We'll have to look into that because that is something I would want to have.
I'd want to have that as well. So why don't we start off with your modern games?
Okay, so there's a couple of issues that not issues, but topics we'll be covering here. But so there are games. Well, okay, so the first issue I guess I'll cover is the ability for modern games to introduce classic music to a new generation in a non-confrontational way.
Yeah.
Like a 12-year-old is not necessarily this is a gross generalization, but I'm going to bet this is true. The average 12-year-old I don't think is going to have an interest in music from the mid 20th century. I think for the most part, most people are interested in the music that is contemporary to whenever they are alive. And obviously that varies from person to person, but I think you'd have a hard time getting a 12-year-old to be interested in like jazz music from the 40s, just inherently, or if their parents are trying to, get them interested. I think that's a more uphill battle. But if it's like in something cool that they like, they're sort of like organically introduced to it,
right,
and they might be more interested. And so some examples I think of for stuff like that are L.A. Noire, which they have a lot of actual tracks that were already existing before L.A. Noire, and then they have a couple that are specific for the game that are really good.
Can I just make a real quick side note? I think L.A. Noire is the most underrated game of all time. That game is brilliant. It is just brilliant and completely unique and wonderfully done. And everybody just brushes it aside. Like, nobody even talks about it anymore.
I think it wasn't what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't like Grand Theft Auto where you had all this controversy. Yeah. It was just like you were a cop solving crimes.
Oddly enough, the controversy had to do... There was controversy with that because apparently the people that made the game, Team Bondi, They were like slave drivers. They would make people work like 90 hours a week and like pay them nothing and stuff.
Well, that's unfortunately what you get when you go into the video game industry.
Yeah, they got shut down because of like rights violations, I think.
But so some other examples would be I would say GTA in general, Grand Theft Auto, specifically Grand Theft Auto Vice City, which I think reintroduced 80s music to a whole generation of people.
Such a huge deal. Do you remember the GTA box set that came out? I mean, I worked at a music store. More relevant.
Yeah, with the soundtracks.
Yeah, it was $90.
Yeah, it was everything.
Like 12 soundtracks to it.
It had all the radio junk on it too, didn't it?
Yeah,
and it was like I don't remember if they had was the radio popular pre GTA Vice City. 3 came out before that, right?
Yeah, 3.
It was 3 and then Vice City.
So
right?
3 only had talk stations.
Okay.
They didn't have any music.
Okay.
It was Vice City where they licensed all the stuff and then like made real radio stations.
That was an epic move on their part.
That was huge, and it was just a huge deal. And I will forever remember, whenever I hear that Flock of Seagulls song, I always remember that GTA commercial. And he ran, that one. There was a GTA commercial at the time, and it was just so perfect. And now that those two things are synonymous for me.
Yeah. And that's another perfect example of like the visuals married with the music. You know, it's like, I mean, obviously they're doing this in retrospect or, you know, after the fact. And so they can design their game with the 80s aesthetic that they want to like really capture that feeling and emotion and like the color palettes and all that stuff. But I mean, that's one where it's like the music is perfect with these visuals to really get the emotion and the nostalgic feeling from that time period.
And what's also really interesting is GTA enables you to sort of customize your experience. When I play Grand Theft Auto, I really like to do things my own certain way. Like I always wear a suit, no matter like as soon as I can buy a suit in a GTA game, I wear the suit for everything. Because through just that like Reservoir Dogs, I really like the idea of like people committing crimes in suits.
Mm-hmm.
And like when I'm doing really gangster things, I like putting on the rap station. And when I'm doing super duper violent things, I always like to put on the classical station. And so it sort of lets you like role play to that next level. Like, what would this character be listening to while he's doing these things? And that's a really interesting thing to me.
So another great example of this is Civilization 4. Which they basically, I mean, they have these different time periods, and it's more classical music with that game. But I like random classical music. I'm not, and I usually can't even identify who it is or whatever it is. I just like the way it sounds. I'm probably a really like dumb person when it comes to classical music. But there's a lot of great music that they included in Civ 4. And it sort of brought me back into classical music and helped me appreciate it a little bit more. You know, and you hear it so much. Like I played a ton of Civ 4, and so I'm listening to tons of classical music, and it sort of changes as you move through time. You know, they have like, I think it's more tribal music at the beginning of the game when it's you know, pre kind of 1700s type stuff. And so it's like each age sort of has the music that evokes the feeling. And another one which I have not played them, but I know they have a lot of great music is the Fallout series. More recently, I think. I don't think the old ones have that kind of stuff in it.
It does have good music, although honestly, none of it's jumping out at me. What I like is that sort of like 60s, like 50s, 60s nostalgia feeling they have in the Fallout series. And like when you do hear radio, it's always like that old timey stuff.
Yeah. And you know, it was funny when I was looking. I think I found a playlist, I think once, of like all the music from Fallout, and so I was listening through some of it, and it's like every comment is like, "Oh yeah, I really love this song. I played the game. I have no idea what this was. So I'm, you know, thank you so much for putting this up." Like, because people don't know, they just hear it and they love it, and but I think without that video game setting as like the catalyst to listen to it, I don't know if people would necessarily, younger people who didn't grow up with it, I don't know if they would really have the impetus to bother listening to it without thinking like, oh, it's old, man, I don't want to listen to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if I don't even know if they do. Do young kids go out and like listen to Fallout music outside of that realm now?
Well, I don't know, but I think it opens the door. You know, it's like there's a lot of music like. as I was growing up, there's a lot of jazz, I think, from the 30s, 40s, and 50s that I sort of vaguely liked, but I didn't really know what it was. And then L.A. Noir came out.
Yeah.
And like it finally like solidified for me, like, this is the kind of jazz that I like. And so it opened the door for me to like a larger world and other artists. And, you know, if you find one track you like in L.A. Noir, well, okay, I really like this one by Billie Holiday. Well, I'll go look up a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it gets you into something.
And it's so easy nowadays to do that. I'm going on a musical odyssey right now. I signed up for Spotify, and even though like music's been a huge part of my life, my degree's in radio. I worked at several radio stations. I worked at music stores my entire life. But there's like huge swaths of music that I'm just not familiar with.
Yeah.
Specifically, what I'm going through right now is like 70s R&B. No, it's good. Like Teddy Pendergrass and like Marvin Gaye and Barry White and stuff.
No, thank you.
If
they had it in like a Grand Theft Auto, I'd listen to it.
Yeah, well, obviously. GTA 70s. They haven't done it yet.
They will.
But I like whenever I'm inspired to find new music or even just reevaluate music. And those games do a really great job of that.
If I am generally not... There are some specific songs, like hits and stuff from the 70s that I like. But generally, I'd say as a decade, it's not my most favorite decade of music. So if a game comes out that gets me interested, I'll be impressed.
We'll see what happens.
So those are sort of that's sort of like the bookends, I would say, for that sort of discussion topic.
Yeah.
Are there any other games for you that like fit into that sort of criteria where it sort of introduced you or has the potential to introduce a player to a whole genre?
Are we separating Rock Band and stuff into a different category? Because I'm going to bring it up now because
fine.
I think it's very relevant to this conversation.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
When Rock Band was first starting out, they couldn't get the rights to everything they wanted. All the songs were cover songs. It's not like, they actually got the tracks from Boston. They hired a band from the city of Boston to re-record all the tracks and stuff. But they just picked songs that were a ton of fun. And they weren't necessarily like the most popular songs. A really great example is actually in Guitar Hero 2. The Primus song that they picked was John the Fisherman, which is not the first song that comes to your mind when you think of Primus. You think like Jerry was a race car driver and stuff like that. My Name is Mud. They picked like a slightly more obscure song, but as it turns out, that's like now one of my favorite Primus songs, and they did a really wonderful job of just introducing you to all this awesome new stuff. And I was listening to a mix CD I made in the car today, and it sort of dawned on me that I would say 5 out of the 20 tracks on that CD I heard first from Guitar Hero. And myself and my friend Ty, we were very much into Guitar Hero. We talk about this frequently. We were introduced to so much good music from that game that we never in a million years would have listened to. We've never listened to an Xyz song. And it's a great song. Hey You, it's a great song. And not only that, like there was a bunch of people who worked for harmonics, like Freeze Pop and stuff. Freeze Pop is huge now. That was from Guitar Hero, and I never would have heard Freeze Pop otherwise. So, some credit has to be given to them to introduce entire generations to older stuff, newer stuff. Now I like Boston. I never would have, I couldn't name a Boston song before Guitar Hero. So I think that definitely falls under that umbrella of introducing people to new stuff.
This is a little bit of a segue because I'm only bringing it up because I don't want to forget about it. How do you feel about games, especially I feel like modern racing games are big on this, where it's got a lot of like random modern music in, and you can sort of it sometimes has the options to sort of choose what you want to listen to. I feel like Burnout, I think, had a lot of that.
Yeah, Burnout did.
Maybe did Project Gotham?
I never played Project Gotham.
I don't remember. But I feel like that's a pretty common thing in racing games these days, like the casual like street racing.
Electronic Arts does that. They did that. They were really into that for a while. I think they were getting paid by music companies to put their music in there. But like Madden, during all the menus, they would just be playing, hip hop songs. Or Fight Night's a really great example of that.
Yeah.
You know, it was just hip hop over all the menus and like all the training sessions and stuff like that. Was there a question? I forgot.
No, I guess there's not really a question per se. I feel like that's like a the alternative. That is a point I think that had the potential for us to miss over, to skip over it. But it's relevant because it's like, and those games at some point are going to, if people go back and play them, they're going to feel extremely dated because of the music.
For sure. It feels like part of it has like a narrative reason. You know, like the GTA, it helps build that world.
Mm-hmm.
Where with like the EA games in the menus, it just feels so cheesy and awful.
It's just like jammed in there.
Yeah.
Now, and the sort of a segue off of that is the music in 50 Cent Blood in the Sand.
Yeah, that was great.
And there was an exclusive to that game, right?
There was like 3 or 4 exclusive tracks.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
It was like 50 Cent songs. And you could customize your playlist and stuff. I just played PIMP the whole time.
Well, of course.
Because I am. That actually, Tony Hawk. I compared 50 Cent to Tony Hawk a lot.
Yeah.
Because the games just had the same feel to me. But the Tony Hawk games had those incredible soundtracks. And those were customizable, and that was another game that really introduced me to a lot of stuff, like Dead Kennedys, Primus we talked about, Goldfinger, Bad Religion. These are all bands that I love, and, well, not so much with Goldfinger. These are all bands that I really love, and I found them all through Tony Hawk. Especially Tony Hawk 2. Tony Hawk 2 soundtrack was really good.
So I don't know. I thought we should at least like mention that stuff.
Yeah.
So the next sort of genre of modern gaming music is sort of that ethereal, sort of moody, epic kind of music, and for that, I would lump in stuff like Mass Effect, Halo, Destiny, and I would say that those are probably the best examples, especially like
they're definitely the most relevant to us.
Yeah. Mass Effect, it's like I don't even know how to describe it. It's beyond words. It's
the Mass Effect soundtrack is the greatest thing to happen to modern video games.
And I mean, like I guess I should restate that. Like the main songs from that I love. I don't want to like sit down and listen to the whole Mass Effect soundtrack because like boss level fights and like angry sort of classical weird synthy stuff, like I don't. No, thank you. But like the main title theme, the main theme for the games, like that kind of stuff, really, I enjoy.
When we were doing our Mass Effect episodes, I actually listened start to finish all 3 Mass Effect soundtracks.
Good for you.
Yeah,
that's a lot of work.
The first 2 don't totally hold up on their own. Like there's a few like great tracks and moments and stuff.
And then there's some where it's just like, oh, that's just video game background music.
Mass Effect 3, though, as a whole,
much better.
Soundtrack is totally listenable. Very good. It's like one of 2 albums I have on my iPad. So when I travel on an airplane, I tend to listen to the Mass Effect 3 soundtrack.
One of the things about the Mass Effect like main theme music that's always sort of stuck out to me is it kind of reminds me of the music from Blade Runner by what's his name? Vangelis, is that it?
I don't know.
I think that's his name. He's like a synth composer, and it's like it's funny how like so disparate those sort of worlds are from each other. I mean, one's sort of like a neo noir sort of thing. I mean, that's not Mass Effect. Mass Effect isn't noir really.
No, not really.
It's like a very like future action sci-fi mystery.
Here's the thing, though.
It has the most vaguest hints of noir.
I get a real sad feeling from Mass Effect.
Yeah.
And I also get a sad feeling from Blade Runner. Like, even though things are shiny and kind of new in Mass Effect, nothing is ever good. So I feel
it's a tragic world.
Yeah, for sure. So there's a general tone between the 2 that I could connect.
Yeah. I feel like I'm gonna that that thought is gonna simmer for a while and
Yeah, for sure.
cook in my head. And then there's Halo, which is like a whole other beast.
Yeah, that's a whole thing.
Which there's two parts of that. One is like Breaking Benjamin.
Halo 2 was such a big deal that they actually released 2 soundtracks. The first one was it was like some score mixed in with like Breaking Benjamin, and Incubus was on there.
Yeah.
And like that kind of stuff. And it was really disjointed and awful and weird. And then they released like an actual score that's just
By
wonderful.
Marty O'Donnell.
Marty O'Donnell. We bring him up a lot.
Yep.
Because we talk about Halo a lot.
Yep.
Halo does such a funny and weird thing with that like chanting.
Yeah.
There's a real spiritual element to Halo. Both like underlying, like realistically, all of Halo is set in motion by like celestial gods who created 2 races and deemed one of those races more important than the other. And like, what do you believe and what's important and all that stuff. I mean, believe was the tagline for Halo 3, wasn't it? I think it was.
I'll take your word for it.
So
but,
like,
but the funny thing is, all that could be easily missed. If you're just
Yeah.
like, oh, I love shooting aliens, like if that's like, you could just skip over all of that sort of higher level of
yeah.
meaning.
But I mean, the second you boot up that Halo and those monks start chanting and stuff, you know you're playing a different game, and I respect their ability to tell you information so indirectly and so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Marty O'Donnell just did such a wonderful job with the Halo soundtrack.
I'm just thinking about some of the Halo music.
I know, it's so good. I'm going to bring it up again in a little bit.
And I would say, I mean, they're all good. I would say the Halo 1, 2... Halo 1 and 2 probably stand out the most. I don't really remember Halo 3 one way or the other.
I don't remember much about 3, period.
Yeah.
Definitely the worst game in the series.
No, 4.
Fine.
4
is the worst.
Yeah. I don't necessarily remember the music from Reach. Reach was a great game. I don't really remember. The music doesn't stand out the way it was with 1 and 2. I mean, like,
yeah,
there's
some
sort of
good
a
stuff, but
there's like a musical theme that had already been established, and I feel like at that point it's just sort of like self-perpetuating. Like, we'll just keep making music that's sort of similar.
yeah, that sounds like it.
But 1 and 2 distinctly are memorable.
Yeah, Halo 2 is just great. And, subsequently the Destiny soundtrack is really wonderful. We talked about it a little bit, but they do a really good job of making you feel epic in Destiny.
Yeah, and that is another game similar to Mass Effect in that there are key specific songs that I love, whether it's sort of like a chill sort of menu type of thing, or it's like a real epic, like big level one. But then there's a lot of stuff for when you're doing like action against enemies and stuff like that, where I don't want to listen to that.
Yeah, truthfully, the menu music is actually the best.
Yeah.
It's sort of like ethereal and like dreamy and weird. The menu music's really good.
It's like spiritual.
Yeah, for sure.
But not in a hippie way.
No, in a good way.
Yeah. So let's get so my last topic here will sort of lead us into a couple of.
Well, I still have a few modern games that I wanted to mention.
Okay.
Were you going to talk about Fez? Is that in your next section?
We are.
All right, hit up your next section.
All right.
And then anything we miss, I'll gloss back over.
So the next section it's a hybrid of like really listenable music inspired by classic gaming music. So we've got Fez. What else do we have here? Boy, I hope it's more than that. I'm looking at my list here. Why do I only have Fez on here?
Well, I would throw in Shovel Knight here.
Okay.
Shovel Knight has the best modern soundtrack to like a retro style game. I don't know if I put Fez and Shovel Knight in the same genre, but it's a toss up. Both of those are amazing. Shovel Knight actually had 2 tracks done by the person who did Mega Man 2. So like it has that awesome Mega Man feel, and it's just the raddest.
Fez or Shovel Knight?
Shovel Knight. What did I say? I'm sorry.
No, I don't know. I didn't.
Yeah, Shovel Knight has this really great Mega Man feel to it, and considering I previously said Mega Man 2 was the greatest overall soundtrack, it equates 100% to Shovel Knight.
Another game that I would include on here is probably one that nobody has played, unfortunately. It was originally called Spirit, and then they changed the name to Korra.
Dumb transition.
Yeah, those are both dumb names. It was a game that was on Kickstarter, and it's almost more of an experimental story adventure. There's no enemies, there's really nothing to do. It's like you sort of wander through this pixely world and slowly unravel this kind of mildly spiritual story. But again, it's got that sort of, I don't want to say 8-bit necessarily, but very listenable, very like calm, relaxing, wonderful, just really nice to listen to in the background. And another game which sort of fits in with this genre, kind of, is SimCity 4, which has this like weird techno jazz theme to it. And you could actually, because I had it for the PC, you could actually extract the MP3s directly from the program files folder, which is really nice. You didn't have to do anything. And like that has been my go-to listening music when I need to do something, like study or work on something or whatever, since like that game came out.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's like it's not like a quote unquote soundtrack. I don't feel it's ever gonna get the attention that it really deserves. But they're all really amazing. Like if that's a genre that even sounds remotely interesting, like synth jazz, you'll really dig that music. So kind of the larger issue here, I would say, is how classic gaming inspires this kind of new wave of modern gaming music, with like, you know, with respect to like Fez and things like that.
Right.
Chiptune, which is like a whole genre of music now.
Yeah, I mean it's just huge.
And it's like I put it on like Pandora sometimes, and it's like incredible music. Like if it's a genre of music you like, if you like classic gaming music, it's like you'll just hear one amazing song after another.
It's weirdly listenable considering it's made through such artificial means.
Yeah. And it's like you obviously have that nostalgia that goes back to the stuff you played when you were a kid. But it's like I mentioned for some of this other stuff, it's like it's dense and like multi-layered, you know,
for sure.
And it's like teasing all the different parts of it apart to sort of like, oh, what are they doing here with this song? It's like just like sometimes I just like you just sort of look up and you just sort of listen to it, kind of like the way a dog turns its head when they're listening to something, and it's like, oh, that's really neat what they did.
Yeah, if you're interested in chiptunes in general, visit overclockedremix.com. It's an entire website devoted to it, all user-created, all free, I believe. And it's just a really wonderful resource for that kind of stuff. But it is interesting how video games in general and now the music attached to them has sort of devolved back to that 8-bit roots.
But it like... You know, here's a great analogy. I would say that modern chiptune music it's equivalent to the comic book Hellboy, and here's why.
Okay, this is going to be a weird one.
No, this is going to be weird. But for anybody that's familiar with Hellboy and the artwork for it, will know that it's very simplistic, but intentionally so, and like every stroke of like every line, everything, it's like so hyper intentional, and that's how I feel with like chiptune. It's like this music was so basic, and then, you know, I feel like it's reached such a pinnacle compared to where it came from, but it's all like intentional. It's not just sloppy and like heavy. It's like refined. Interesting.
I hadn't thought of it that way, but I certainly see your perspective.
But you will now.
Yeah, right. I can't unlearn that. I'm a total brain fart here.
Okay.
Should I mention a few games?
Yeah, if you've got some chiptune stuff or chiptune artists.
Yeah.
Anamanaguchi is like sort of the main obvious one, but they're like almost beyond it at this point with some of the stuff they do. It's like bizarre.
They're just so intense. You know, I don't know a ton of chiptune artists beyond them.
Yeah, I don't know a lot by name.
It's just sort of just in general stuff I like. Disaster Piece is the guy who did the Fez soundtrack,
which is incredible.
It's phenomenal.
If it has not won awards, it should.
The Fez soundtrack. Now, Fez is obviously one of my favorite games. I never shut up about it. I feel like Fez would not be as good a game without that soundtrack.
They complement each other very well.
Each song so perfectly fits the feeling of the level that it's attached to. That it just...
Especially Sync.
Yeah.
We should talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I'm going to patch it in here so you know what we're talking about. There's a level in Fez, and each level is usually very short. But this one's completely unique, where the level itself is actually tied to the music. The platforms will appear in time to what's playing behind you.
So you jump, and like the music matches what you're doing in the level, and that's rare.
Yeah,
I can't remember ever having that experience where like the beats match my actions. Because normally you're sort of like you free roam and you can sort of do whatever you want.
Right.
But like this level forces you to act a certain way.
And you have to anticipate the blocks appearing in time with the music.
Yeah.
They sort of ease you into it and they just show you that the blocks will appear as the beats are happening. But towards the end, you just have to take blind faith that these blocks are going to appear when the beat hits. There's another game called 140 Degrees, which has the entire game is similarly based around the music.
Okay.
Like it's sort of a platforming like level thing, but you can time all of the obstacles to the music that's playing, and then because it's borderline impossible if you don't do that. Like you're not going to be able to just intuitively get through these levels. You have to time everything to the music. So that's a pretty unique take on that. But you just love that song, right?
Yeah, no, you were sort of under the impression that I really liked the level and
Right.
like the interplay. I just love the song. I think the beats are just the way it's just put together. It's great.
Yeah, when Dan brought that song up, I was like, yeah, I really love that song too because it reminds me of just how great that level is. And Dan's like, no, I just like that song.
And the funny thing is you picked like, oh, this other song is like obviously the best one from the soundtrack. And I was like, actually, that's not my favorite.
Yeah. The song Adventure.
It's a good one. They're all
it's
good.
Just wonderful.
The whole soundtrack is amazing.
It's really unbelievable. It's just the best video game soundtrack of all time.
Yeah.
Start to finish, it's just wonderful. Mega Man goes really well with each thing, but you can listen to the whole thing in 10 minutes. Fez is 45 brilliant tracks. And interestingly enough, there's 2 albums out. The London Philharmonic Orchestra has done 2 video game themed albums. And they actually did one of the songs from Fez. They did Adventure.
Nice.
And it's real good orchestrated. Those CDs are pretty good. Some of the songs are amazing, and some of them are real cheesy. Like the Mario one and that, not good.
I've heard some like goofy Mario covers over the years. Some are fun and some are dumb.
Yeah.
But it's nice that people sort of get into it and do that kind of thing. But before we get off of Fez, there's also a sort of spin-off of that is Fez Side F and Fez Side Z, which are both... Side F is by Disaster Piece, right?
I'm not totally sure.
I think Side F is... I feel like we should have researched that before we talked about it. Well, you should go to Wikipedia if you really want to know more. Side Z is like other artists getting into it and sort of doing their own takes and like remixes and stuff like that. And it's... In general, both of those I don't think are quite as strong as the original Fez soundtrack, but they're both really fun to listen to.
They're good companion pieces to it.
Yeah, if you've listened to the Fez soundtrack extensively and then you listen to the other ones, I feel like you get more out of it because you're just like, oh yeah, I recognize that. Oh, that's a really unique take on that sort of that particular song. So those are really cool, and like that's not something that normally happens. You don't get like 2 additional soundtrack albums out of a video game soundtrack.
Yeah. All right. Do we have any more points, or should we just sort of do a few wrap-up stuff? We're losing light here, and I'm a little concerned.
We are. We're probably in like
You're total darkness. Just listen to the soothing sounds of our voices. Let me just go through.
I've got one last game to mention.
Okay, go ahead.
Which is Monument Valley.
All right.
which is a really beautiful game for the iPhone and Android. It's I wouldn't describe it as like 8-bit or anything like that.
It's just an artistic puzzler.
Yeah, it's like a platformer puzzler game. And the music is like, it's just real calm. It's like relaxing and chill.
Yeah. All right, let me just run through a few games that I feel fall under the modern banner.
Okay.
The game Bastion has a really wonderful soundtrack. It's sort of like this folky country adventure songs. Real good. The Sword and Sorcery EP, which is another iOS game, it even says in the name EP. Music is like intrinsically tied to that game in like interesting, unique ways. It has some sort of like throwback 8-bit stuff to it. And then I want to talk about Red Dead Redemption, but not in general. I want to talk about a very specific moment. And this is something I wish I had done a smidge more research on. So in Red Dead Redemption, it's a giant game. Like every GTA game, they sort of like quarantine off areas for you to explore later. So in Red Dead Redemption, you start out in America. Eventually, something happens. You get annexed to Mexico for a little while. But the game does this really amazing thing where you have to take this horse ride from America to Mexico, and I feel like it's been a long time since I played it, but you're sort of like dejected, like things aren't going well for you. You have to run away now, and you're stuck walking along this cliff of a canyon, and completely out of nowhere, like just a man and an acoustic guitar starts singing this like really simple folk ballad.
Oh, I remember this. What is that guy's name?
That's why I wish I had done some research on it.
We gotta get that. You keep
look
talking.
it up
I'll
and
see
if you can find the name of the song for me. And at no point in the rest of the song was there any like modern music. And I think he's singing a song about a runaway train, I believe.
Yeah, no, this guy is amazing, and he's from Europe too. I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We'll have it for you in a second.
The song is phenomenal, and it just gives you this such sad feeling where you're being introspective both as a player and a character, and it takes you totally out of the game in a way because it's not an appropriate music to what's happening.
Jose Gonzalez?
That could be it.
Far Away? I don't know if that's right. Yeah. He's a Swedish indie folk singer, songwriter, and guitarist from Gothenburg, Sweden. Uska Norskaland.
And it is a 100% genuinely unique video game moment that has never been replicated since. And if they do something similar to that, it's just going to be, it's like, well, yeah, but Red Dead Redemption did that better. And that moment in video game time has to be preserved, and I really want people to remember that part.
Yeah, when I play the game, I distinctly remember that song, and like that is an incredible song.
It's just so sad and perfect. So that moment of Red Dead Redemption needs to be mentioned.
You better cut that in here.
Oh yeah. I might even play the whole thing. It is just so good. There's in Rayman Legends.
Okay.
There is a music level where you are platforming to a Rayman version of Ram Jam's Black Betty.
Okay.
And it is straight up the most fun thing I've ever done in a video game. It's just so stupid and amazing. It's like you're breaking down barriers of enemies to the drum beat. It's just so much fun. So that level of Rayman Legends is just the best. And then there is an entire game that needs to be mentioned that doesn't fall under any category. It's completely unique, nothing like it. Elite Beat Agents. It's a game for the original DS where the premise of the game is that people are having bad days, and you are a government agency that goes and helps people through the power of music.
That sounds so stupid.
It is stupid. But it has real world songs to it, and a lot of them are not even good. But like, it's just so much fun to play this game, and the tone of it is fun and silly, and you just have a great time tapping along to it. And you sort of like follow a ball like at the bottom of the screen, on the touchpad of the screen, and things are happening up top, and it's just fun. It's just a really weird, fun game, and it's silly. It's like a music version of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. It's just great. And those people, the people who made Elite Beat Agent, so they made Guitaru Man, which is pretty famous. It's short and very expensive. It's like $90 PS1 game. Then they made Elite Beat Agents, and now they made like the Black Eyed Peas music experience for the Wii. It's just like, what happened to you guys? Elite Beat Agents was so wonderful. But now I kind of want to play that Black Eyed Peas game. Fergie Ferg, my lady lumps. Come on.
They are lovely.
They are lovely.
Do you have more games, or can I?
No, that's it.
Okay. So there's one. Maybe this will be our last send-off topic, but
well, we still have to pick our bests.
All right, fine. This will be our last topic, and then we'll pick our bests. The concept of music, not soundtracks or things to listen to, but like in the game itself. And I think of Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time as like the premier example of this. And to a much lesser degree, like you have the flute in Super Mario Brothers 3, I believe, which lets you transport to other places. And I honestly don't know of a lot of other games that really incorporate music effectively. But I mean, they knocked it out of the park in Zelda. With the different songs doing different things.
Brutal Legend, the Double Fine game, actually does a similar thing with the guitar.
Okay.
To summon things, he plays guitar notes, very similar to the ocarina. And that's a lot of fun. That game's fun and stupid.
So I think that's an interesting concept, and I think they should include that more in games when appropriate, obviously. But I don't know why they don't do it more.
Yeah, like have musical instruments represent something.
Yeah. And it's quite. I don't know how often does that occur in future Zelda games. I mean, it's probably here and there, but Ocarina of Time was like that was the gimmick.
Wind Waker is sort of similar to that. Like he's like conducting the wind. He gets like a little conductor staff.
Okay.
I don't know if that continued in like Spirit Tracks or anything. But yeah, it's not prevalent in a lot of games. I guess, you know what? I do have one more topic before we get to best.
All right.
There's this whole genre now of like nerdcore music and just video game related music. Tommy Tallarico has video game lives going all over the world.
I don't know what that is. I don't know what you just said to me. Who? What?
Tommy Tallarico is a famous music developer for games. Quite honestly, I don't know any games he's done.
Okay.
But he has just sort of become that face of video game music to American culture. But he has a touring orchestra, and he plays electric guitar that goes around. Like we were in upstate New York, a place called Proctor's. They were recently at Proctor's, like maybe 3-4 months ago, and they just play video game music. It's called Video Games Live. It's a touring thing. There's the Video Game Orchestra, which is out of Boston, and then several other like subgenres of things. Like Metroid Metal, and we mentioned Anamanaguchi, Jonathan Colton to a certain extent.
Yeah, that's a good example.
These are all like people who sing or do video game related music, and they've created a thing for themselves. Anamanaguchi is huge now.
MC Front a lot.
MC Front a lot. He does some video game stuff. He did the Penny Arcade theme, stuff like that. I specifically want to mention the Triforce Quartet, I believe. they do some non-Zelda things, but they primarily do Zelda songs. But they do like a Zelda medley, and also I've seen video
Medley.
game.
I love that word.
Really?
Medley.
I've also seen Video Game Orchestra do a Zelda medley with just string quartets. It is so moving that it almost brings you to tears. Like, the Zelda music done only on strings is an incredibly emotional experience. It is so beautiful and well constructed. I believe Koji Kondo is the original Zelda composer. He did something with that Zelda theme that is just tailored for string quartets. And if you have not listened to that, you need to go do it. Do yourself a favor. It is the pinnacle of video game music experience you can have. Oh, and Dwayne and Brando.
What's it called again?
The Triforce Quartet, I believe, is their name.
Is that something you could get on like iTunes or Amazon or something?
Yeah, I
or
think you can. I mean,
or is it like
I'm sure you
from
can
their
find
website
it.
or something?
I'm sure you can find it on their website or something.
Okay.
And the last person I wanted to mention was Dwayne and Brando. They are rappers who rap over very faithful versions of NES classic music, and they rap in character as the people in those games. And they're really good at it, and the music's really good. So those are my outside of actual video game music recommendations.
I actually just thought of an example too of another game that utilizes music in a really fun and creative way. Mario Paint.
Oh, really? Well, I know the Watch Out for Fireballs guys do entire things with that.
Yeah, you can buy music from them. That's been
yeah, that's fun. All their theme musics are done in that.
yeah, it's great.
It is great.
And it's like all just sort of samples of weird, Nintendo sound effects and other stuff too. I think I don't know if it's all from games or not, but a lot of weird, great noises in that.
Yeah,
and it's great because it's Mario Paint, and yet it's also a music creation program.
How weird!
What a weird game.
Last thing, and then we are doing our favorites. I mentioned Jonathan Coulton.
Mm-hmm.
Still alive. The credits song for Portal is just a real like high point in video game music.
And it's great too because there's the Gladys version and then there's his version.
Yeah, I've seen both of them perform it. So the lady who did the voice work for Gladys,
Mm-hmm.
I saw her at a panel and she sang that.
Nice.
And then at PAX, I saw Jonathan Coulton also sing that song. So
Cool.
I was like in person, I got both angles of it.
Very nice.
Yeah, so that song's really great, and it's a real like cap to that wonderful game. So let's do favorites. Then we got to get out of here.
For our favorites, I wasn't going to do this. I was just going to say one best, one favorite. But because there's such a disparate difference between modern gaming music and classic gaming music, if you want to do one for each category, feel free.
All right, then you go first because now I need to think.
All right.
I had just an answer.
I would say modern gaming music. Boy, that's tough. It's like for best, I would say I can't decide between Halo or Fez.
Well, I was going to pick a specific track.
Wow, that's ultra specific. I was gonna go with just the soundtrack in general.
Oh, okay. Well, I have a specific track. This is the best or favorite?
This is the best.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna go with Halo.
Okay. We spent too much time together. Do you want to give a reason, or do you want me to just go?
I would say the best classic is Mario or Zelda. That's a tough call. Man. Best classic, Super Mario.
Okay.
My favorite classic, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1, Overworld song.
Okay.
Modern gaming, best is Halo. My favorite is Fez.
Okay. All right. I'm going to do my favorites first.
All right.
My favorite video game song is the Double Dragon 2 theme,
Okay.
which I had not even heard until we did our beat 'em up episode.
Okay.
And it's so funny because Dan and I could not get Double Dragon to work. We were trying to hook up the emulator from my computer onto my TV screen. We couldn't get the second player to work. So I heard the Double Dragon theme like over and over and over as I was trying to get this to work. And every time I would start, I would get like more and more hype. I'm like, yeah, this is pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm like really into this. Now, when I need to get hype, I listen to the Double Dragon theme. It is the best. Start to finish. It starts out so chill, and then it just like, it ramps up and it gets amazing.
Is this Double Dragon 1?
You know, they're technically the same. Double Dragon 2 is the better version of it, I think.
Okay.
Oh, my cat just ran downstairs.
So is that favorite no matter what of all time over everything? Or would you say that's your favorite classic?
That's my favorite classic.
Okay.
No, that's my favorite all time.
All right.
Over everything.
All right.
The best classic is the windmill theme from The Legend of Zelda. There's a name to it that might not be the windmill theme. It's from Ocarina of Time. It's the song that the guy is playing on like his sort of like accordion thing.
Oh, is that playing in the Cocorico Village?
Yeah. No. It's
I can just keep singing it if you want.
It's good. It's when you actually go into the windmill. It's that do 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 do.
Oh yeah.
That one.
That's nice. That's a good one.
It's so. Oh my God, cat! You are
Notice
just
how
all up in my business.
because we've bought very dark colored boots for your cat. We don't hear it walking around in the video, Alex.
Get out of here! This cat.
We bought the cat boots on Amazon.
The kitten mittens.
I forgot about those. From It's Always Sunny.
The best modern song is I'm going to sneeze and I'm trying to prolong this.
You know, if you do this, you don't have to sneeze.
Worked.
It did work.
Peril from Halo 2. I'm still working on that sneeze.
Which level is that?
That's from Delta Halo.
Okay. Yep.
Oh man. There it is. All right, we're good. Yeah, Peril from Halo 2 is just the most amazing orchestral score. It's a song I listen to all the time. I play that level specifically so I can hear that song. And on top of that, it's a wonderful level in Halo 2.
Well, now I feel like a dimwit for just picking like a whole like soundtrack instead of a particular.
Yeah, but I have
specific-
like a predisposed answer. Like, I
right.
mean, Peril is like my go-to. I mention
right.
it all the time, and about every 6 months I post it on my Facebook because it's so wonderful. And then Adventure from Fez is really great too. So those are my jams. If you want to get hype, listen to that Double Dragon 2 soundtrack.
So, if we're still going with our previous sort of future plan here, is we're sort of going to kind of go back and forth with games and game theory and sort of it'll wander a little bit. Oh my God,
this cat is
needs to
so
just
in our
go
business.
away, dude.
It's not happening.
His name is Paco A. George, by the way, in case you're curious.
Her name is Paco A. George.
Oh man, I forgot. That's a girl. So if we're still on track, next episode we will be discussing golf games.
Golf games. The Masters just happened this week, so it's topical.
But it won't be topical when the episode gets posted.
Ish.
And
And then after that, I don't think we have anything picked yet.
should we reveal specifically what golf games, or should we just leave it open-ended as
I think we've already said, right?
golf games? Have we? We probably have.
Screw it. It's a surprise now.
That's great, because I was just about to say the games.
I know. That's why I made it dramatic.
All right.
I am killagreg. You can find me at killagreg17.
I'm Dan. You can find me at the Polygon1.
You can find us at player2, PLAYRTWO on the Twitter.
And you can find us at player2pressstart.com.
And we have, video game music is such a broad topic. We have obviously missed something. Please feel free to leave in the comments or send us a Facebook message of something we missed.
Just post YouTube videos.
Yeah,
Send us like links and stuff. We'd love to be exposed to new songs, especially obscure ones. Like, You know, I mean, this isn't quite as obscure, but the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles like Overworld.
Yeah, nobody
song,
thinks about that song.
Yeah,
so.
nobody. I've never heard anybody ever talk about it except me.
And there's even Punch Out. We didn't even talk about Punch Out. That's a classic one too.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about certain bands, the mini bosses. So even if there's a band you like or anything like that, give us some comments on it because this topic is ripe for conversation.
Yup.
Thank you for checking us out. We will see you next week.
Adios.